Okay, so here we are again at a very interesting transition because on the one hand we have the continuous forest, but then right next to it we have a very big soybean field. And this is exactly what we lost back in the 90s and the early 2000s when there was massive deforestation happening here. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of hectares being lost because there was an increased need to produce more soybeans. And the type of forest that we see here holds immense biodiversity. We're talking about at least 7 species of armadillos, half a dozen species of wildcats, and it's all very unique and endangered. And because of this level of endangerment, in 2007, the Argentine government passed a law to try to restrict land use conversion. So it divided all of their lands into 3 different categories or zones. And you can think of these 3 areas as a traffic light. Red means stop, so you can't deforest. Yellow means maybe go, but still you can't deforest a lot. And then you have green areas, which are open to land conversion.
Now, one thing that I've been thinking about when you've explained this law, this forest law, and seeing a lot of these mega soy farms, I see sort of the values of the international markets imposing themselves upon the values of the not only the biodiversity but also the values of the Argentinian people. And I see the law of forest, the forest law that you're speaking about, as reflecting more of the values that the Argentinians have. Do you think that those values are properly being reflected, or do you think that more is needed in terms of expressing the true value of forest?
Absolutely. I mean, you're really identifying a key point, Jose. The Argentine people love to use their forest. They use it to hunt, they use it to fish, they go and camp, and they take long hikes, and they really value enjoying all this natural wealth that we have. However, the drivers are complex. They're way too complex for just one single scientist as a biologist for me to understand, because we're talking about drivers that are continents away. We have the European Union demanding more soybeans, and also the Chinese communities increasing their consumption of meat. And so most of this soybean that we see here is for export to fulfill those market needs, so to speak.
And I'm wondering about the labor dynamics, because when you have a conversion of more local production of food for local consumption, then you have kind of a lot of labor being generated, right? A demand for labor, and both men and women, right? Being able to be employed. But when you have this conversion to a highly mechanized form of export agriculture, mostly then you lose that, right?
Absolutely.
Employment source.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephanie. This is another critical issue because on the one hand, we're producing tons of food, but it's not being consumed here locally. But on the other hand, you could argue that because of the agronomical expansion, there's also an expansion in terms of job sources. But then because this is a highly technologically advanced way of growing soys, then you need only 1 or 2 people to produce in just tens or hundreds of hectares.